All right, welcome. We're excited to be here. My name is Vaughn Scouten. I'm the global head of MedTech with Salesforce. I run MedTech for our innovation and advisory team. All that means is I've spent the last 20 years in industry, not in tech. With 3 large companies. Super excited to be here today. Have some experts in the industry with a lot of years of experience. We're going to be talking about this little thing called digital transformation. So if anyone in the audience can get the definition of digital transformation right, Salesforce may have a prize for you. Good luck, because there's not one. So excited to be joined here today. We've got Hani. He's the global chair of digital robotics and surgery for Johnson & Johnson MedTech. He's only been with Johnson & Johnson for 23, 24 years. And then we've got Gabriella, who is the divisional head of therapeutics. And I believe that represents about 6 different business units within Olympus. So enough from me. I am just facilitating this. So super excited to be here. So why don't we start, Gabriella, with your definition of digital transformation and maybe what you're doing at Olympus as an organization.
Sure, thank you. So I think you're right that there's definitely not a single definition, but from my perspective at Olympus, when we think about the digital transformation, it's a journey. If we would have had this panel maybe 5 years ago or 3 years ago, and I would have been talking here about what we're doing as a company and our focus, I'd be talking specifically about how we're innovating around visualization and the tools that we have for minimally invasive precision. And really our focus on patient and elevating the standard of care these days, we have to introduce topics like digital transformation, AI, connectivity, because we're not really addressing customer needs without bringing those elements into the discussion. So as we look at things, from an Olympus lens perspective, we're in this journey. We've been investing a lot in our digital strategy over the last, few years, and we're learning a lot. We're making investments in our own organic pipeline as well as in partnerships. And, it's a very exciting time. There's a lot of opportunities for us to use technology that is out there today and innovation that's to come to better serve our patients in the endoscopy space, which is where we focus on.
Great. So let's move to maybe a similar or maybe a very different definition of digital transformation. Hani, what are you guys doing? What's your personal definition of digital transformation, and how are you thinking about it through the Johnson & Johnson lens?
Well, thank you, Vaughn, for arranging for this for us. And he told me to make a joke that finally there's someone taller than me. I was a bit scared when I met him, but at least we're beyond that. And I'm happy you asked Gabriella the question first, because it's not an easy question. And I'll start by saying we have to remind ourselves why we're in this in the first place. A lot of people talk about digital first and tech first. And I think most of us in this industry believe that it should be patient first. And our industry has been built for the last 100 years with one purpose in mind, which is doing our best to use incredible science to really transform healthcare, make lives of patients better, healthier, live longer. And now we have this inflection point where we're bringing digital and technology to help accelerate that. So for me, the journey has to start by reframing it about patients and understanding where we can get that great intersection to move things faster. Now, where this could be true for a lot of us could be in different areas. It depends what part of healthcare you're in. For us as a company, there are a few things that really matter a lot for us. It doesn't matter where you are in the continuum. Talk to anybody anywhere in the world. The patient experience is full of stress points and full of a lot of tension. And how can we use that digital transformation to help address some of these pain points and stress points? There's still incredible variation in outcomes. We need to do better there. There's a lot of inefficiencies, and the numbers in the US. I think 1 trillion out of 4 trillion in healthcare in the US is in admin costs and inefficiencies. We think digital can help there. Moving the outcomes to the right, I think it's a thing for all of us. So for me, anything that addresses all of those can actually make a difference. Now, if I bring it to J&J, I'll give you two examples that are very, very different. One is in supply chain. And if you look at what our teams have done in supply chain, they're already using algorithms and machine learning to look at patient trends, to look at fluctuations in what's happening in suppliers and procurement, and demand fluctuations to be able to predict a better outcome to what's going on. A more simpler one, but talk to our teams, they'll tell you it's very powerful. We've also have an internal enterprise chatbot where it's available in 23 languages, available 24/7, where people ask questions in 3,000 different topics. I've worked for J&J for 23 years. If I wanted to navigate that, it would have taken me 10 years. So it's helping people to show that digital transformation does not have to change the world, but it can start by something small, as long as it serves that purpose of what I shared at the beginning.
That's fantastic. So we have some expert definitions here of digital transformation. So let's shift gears a little bit and talk about something that you both mentioned in part of your definition. Let's talk about the patient and the outcomes and maybe a shift in that continuum of care and expectations. So we're accelerating from a case volume procedure very dramatically out of this pandemic. Whether you're doing total joints, whether you're doing scopes, whatever your business is. So from your seat, how do you think that end user, and it may even be a clinician, right? Because both of your organizations sell to surgeons, but me as an end user, I've been a patient with the Olympus device. I've been a patient with the Johnson & Johnson device. So as an end user, maybe let's start there with that end user, with the patient. How are those expectations changing? I have 3 daughters, and when they look for healthcare, they're doing things dramatically different than when I got injured in sports and they just said, you're going to see this doctor and this is what he's doing for you. So how do you think that shift plays into this for the end user with digital transformation? Like, what are patient expectations today and maybe moving forward in the next 3 to 5 years?
Thank you. So, first, let me again reiterate that from how do we focus on patient, patient safety and then patient outcomes are at the forefront. We have, being global companies, we have different needs depending on the region. And the truth is that we have care that's at different stages of that continuum of advancement. But if we focus for a minute, because we are in the United States for this event, when we think about patient needs and how they're changing, we have a plethora of solutions that are out there, but some of the ways that we're delivering those solutions without having the right connectivity, we're not really maximizing that value at this time. You talk about what has changed post-COVID. We know that from the, post-COVID timeframe, and maybe for 18 months, there was a huge backlog in the ability of the health system to provide the colonoscopies, in our case, that patients needed. The endoscopy suites had a massive backlog. And so one of the things that we're looking at is kind of like a dual perspective. On one hand, we're focused on trying to identify, where are there opportunities for us to improve in the solutions for the tools for the, endoscopists. But on the other hand, also from a health system perspective, we know that there's a plethora of issues in terms of how the hospitals have, access to data, as we've talked in many of the sessions here around supply chain issues that we've all faced in the last, 2 years. So we're looking at it from the perspective of, patient outcomes on one hand, and on the other hand, also commercial excellence solutions on how we serve our customers to make the health systems more effective and more efficient and to improve the satisfaction in that course. So, and for one moment, back to outcomes, one of the biggest areas of opportunity if you intersect digital and then patient outcomes is improvements in workflow. For us, this is a huge area of focus and a huge topic, and it consumes a lot of what we spend our time with, talking to our customers and physicians to understand where we can address and where we can focus on.
Yeah, I'll just add a couple of things to that. I think it's important to just take one step back and take a note to what the progress we've made as an industry from 100 years ago to today. I remember our company was founded with a surgical dressing that was sterile. Before then, it was such a big innovation because if you went to an operating room at the time, it was almost like a death sentence, 50-50 chance you get out of there. And from then to today, whether it's through laparoscopy, whether through endoscopy, the progress has been incredible. But we're through another inflection point. You mentioned patients have changed. One thing we do see is every patient thinks they're a doctor right now because of the incredible information they have compared to what they've had in the past. And that with that comes a lot of power, but with that comes a lot of also responsibility on surgical teams to be able to connect with that. So more educated patients than ever before, more noise in the system than ever before. But there's one common value across everybody you speak to is people want less variation in outcomes and they want better outcomes. And with those two things, what can we do to do that and to empower that? First, I'm a big believer that disease is interconnected. Data right now is not. So that presents a big challenge for everybody in the industry. But at the same time, I think it presents a bigger opportunity to say, if we can address some of these issues where it gives the patient more confidence that when they show up to an operating room, the outcome is going to be more repeatable with the best potential outcome. This is what they want. I think it'll be better for health systems because it addresses costs, because change in variation and outcomes is not good for cost. And I think at the essence of all of this, the magicians who do the work, whether surgeons or nurses or surgical teams, that's something that they want also. So how can we make sure we bring that connectivity between science and technology to address some of that? And I just think this is the first inning of what's coming. And yes, I'm proud of where we came, but I think I'm more excited about where we're going.
Yeah, I agree. I was just kind of scanning the audience, and when you talk about connectivity and when you walk around here and you listen to some of these sessions, I'd be shocked if there's anyone in this room right now, not just here in this audience, that doesn't have some form of a wearable that's connected to some form of a health outcome. Whether it's your heart rate, whether it's my watch telling me to breathe. I see you got the newer version of the watch. So we've got watches maybe that are going to do blood glucose coming up and all kinds of things. So let's shift gears for a minute. And at Salesforce, we have the privilege of calling both of your organizations partners and working with your teams on a data front. So when you think about data, 30% of the data in the world comes from healthcare. So from your seats at J&J and at Olympus, how are you thinking about data and, more importantly, making strategic business decisions based on all this data that you have availability to, especially, and let's start with you, Hani, in the kind of digital surgery and robotics realm. Like, what does it look like today, and what are you guys thinking about, futuristically and preparing for?
Yeah, every conference, every session I attended, everyone talks about data. And I know it's maybe the biggest opportunity for all the industry, but also the biggest challenge for all the industry. There are a few things for me and for us is very foundational. First, I go back to the point of disease being interconnected. That tells me that data has to be connected. So that's first. Two, there is some people who think that this is a big problem and only one company can solve for it. I happen to believe that this is not the way to go after it. This is one of the biggest challenges and opportunities of our lifetime. I think it's going to take a coalition of like-minded companies, small, mid-size, and large, to work together to really advance where we go with this. And it cannot be, because if you see it on the other side, you work in tech, if you see it on the other side of, again, surgical teams or hospitals, throwing tech for them to deal with is not going to work. If it's not connected, if it's not scalable, it's not going to work. So how do we make sure that we build something that, one, foundationally is secure, is foundationally addresses some of the biggest security challenges, privacy that we all care about, and it's a priority for all of us. But at the same time, it's open, where the best innovation to address this should come from anywhere. And that coalition of like-minded companies that can go and make a difference, I think, will help us advance this. It has to be a way where it's interoperable between others, because if we don't work through that, we will miss the biggest potential of not just understanding the impact of electrophysiology and AFib, but what's the connection between that and stroke. It's not about knees versus obesity. It's obesity, knees, and cancer. So for me, having that connectivity with an open mind of what could come is the real magic. And I hope others will join us in that journey, because it's not going to be one person or one company that will do this.
Yeah, very little to add from Hani, but I think, to sum it up from my perspective, connectivity is key. Infrastructure of the data. We talked about privacy, regulations. All of these things are, challenges and opportunities, because as you just said, from a data perspective, there's a lot of data out there, but being able to have that data really be actionable and being able to connect the dots between using that data to improve outcomes or improve workflow or efficiency, that's the key. And right now, data sits in silos. And again, I think we're all working together, and it's not a problem, or these challenges, again, have to be solved in industry and in forums like this, working with our regulators and trying to keep up with the pace of technology. Because the truth is that, things are moving really fast. And I think one of the other challenges when we talk about data is that at the end of the day, there's a lot of new technology out there and there's a lot of new software. But when we think about the operating rooms today, the endoscopy suites, we have a lot of legacy products that today are not equipped to manage the type of technology that is coming our way. And so this is also one of the biggest challenges that we face, because whether we like it or not, all of these products, capital and hardware are responsible and are necessary to meet the healthcare system needs of today and probably for the next decade or so. So how do we connect these? How do we focus on really changing where the biggest value pools are for outcomes? I think that's the key. And all of us kind of working together towards those same goals with, again, regulation, infrastructure, privacy. I think that's key.
So I love that response, because it's not just Olympus and Johnson & Johnson and Salesforce. There's startup organizations that are pitching that are going to play a role in this. There's mid-sized companies. There's companies that we partner with, right? We don't have all the answers. Let people do what they do best. And it's been a fun experience transitioning myself from industry to the tech side of the house, because now I get to work with all my friends, right? I'm not part of the Stryker Mafia anymore, where I spent a decade, right? I get friends in every organization. So we talked a little bit about challenges. We talked a little bit about opportunities. So when you think about this, there's a huge piece. And Salesforce does an event called Dreamforce, and they claimed it was the biggest AI event of the year. So I think we'd get booed off the stage if I didn't ask your thoughts and opinions around what your organizations are currently doing with AI. How are you thinking about it? And that all is backed by this data that we talked about, right? If you don't have a solid foundation of data, what is generative AI going to do for you? Are you going to use it siloed in all your different business units? How do you roll that out as an enterprise? So, Gabriela, let's start with you. What are you doing at Olympus? How are you currently using AI? And maybe what keeps you up at night, or how are you thinking about it futuristically?
Thank you. So as I said earlier, I think for us at Olympus, as the leader in endoscopy, we need to continue innovating in this space. And our digital strategy is something that we do invest a lot of time, resources, and thinking about the future. We've made a lot of investments. We have a lot of partnerships, and over the last few years, we have, from a portfolio perspective, also we have made a lot of additions to our portfolio with solutions like our Easy Suite integration solution, which is for the operating theater, and others. And we continue to invest and have partnerships to advance in those areas. I feel that as a management team at Olympus, we feel pretty good about how we've been able to really bolster our capabilities and skills. And this is a combination of, we have a great engineering team in different parts of the globe working together. We have, done some M&A in the last year with our Odin acquisition, and this has helped bolster our innovation and resources, and it's allowed us to really use this also as a platform to say, as a smaller company, Odin Vision has come in and really infused energy, and has allowed us to use that as a kind of breeding ground for having a more focused digital design center. And now we've already announced that we're going to, follow in those same footsteps in some of our other R&D locations to ensure that, our commercial strategy that's maybe a few steps ahead of where we are maybe with the technology and our R&D infrastructure today stays up with that pace. And again, I think we have the right focus and the right mindset. And, we have a lot of our customers that are working with us very closely to ensure that we, again, stay focused, not just in developing solutions, but in the right solutions that are going to bring us closer to improving care. But again, the technology is changing rapidly, and yeah, there are challenges, but I would say that, at present, we feel very, very excited about the digital strategy that we have in place and how we're going to be able to bring those solutions to market.
I wasn't gonna address it, but since you brought it up about Dreamforce, I live in the Bay Area, and in J&J MedTech and J&J, we have something very close to ours, our credo, and the impact you do in our communities. What you've done recently for San Francisco was incredible. So on behalf of everyone in the Bay Area, thank you. I think that was a massive, massive shot in the arm that the city needed. So thank you for that. On AI, again, you said you had to ask it. Last Friday, there was an article in the Wall Street Journal talking about this will be a bigger change to healthcare than the antibiotics. We'll see if that's true or not. It could be bigger, could be not. But there are a few truths that I'm sure will be the case. One, the same way you don't step in a car now, even if you know where you're going, you would not go step in it without having this augmented intelligence with maps or everything around it. I do think if you talk to all of our surgical teams, talk to surgeons, talk to nurses, if we can get something to assist in that journey with what they're doing, I think that's going to be very, very powerful, and no one would say no to that. Two, when you look at the other side of medtech, if you look at farm or biotech, I do think there is having the ability to go and understand what this could mean for drug development and clinical research, both on the farm, biotech, or the medtech side. I think that's going to be incredibly powerful. I do think this is one of the most exciting things that I've seen in my career, and I think it'll hold true going forward. But at the same time, we need to lead on some of the challenges, especially when it comes to, from a regulatory perspective and from a government affairs perspective and policy. If we don't get ahead of this, we're going to be in a place where it's being positioned as a threat to what we can do as people, as industry, and that's what worries me. But if we get ahead of it, and not only with the US lens, but with the global lens, I think this, again, one more reason to believe that our best days as industry is ahead of us because of the power it has for patients.
Fantastic. So when we talk about AI, we've obviously had and have, and it continues to evolve. I say about the weather where I live. If you don't like it, wait 5 minutes. I live in Salt Lake City. And so that's what's happening in this AI environment. And you get this data on the back end, and it's interesting even to watch the younger generation and what they're doing with this, right? I was traveling with my daughters, and they asked me, how do you get around without these maps, like you mentioned? Like, you wouldn't even think about getting in a car trying to navigate a city like LA or San Francisco as a visitor. So last question, we've got a few minutes left. What's keeping you guys up at night, right? We've defined digital transformation. We've talked about data. We've talked about the patient. We've talked about connectivity. At Salesforce, we talk about combining all of this, right, with predictive analytics and on the supply chain side. Like, at the end of the day, both of your organizations are highly regulated manufacturers. So when you think about the future, what's keeping you up at night, or what excites you the very most? Hani, you said the best days are ahead. What do you think that looks like if we take a peek behind the curtains for the industry, for Johnson & Johnson, and then Gabriela, you can finish us off.
Well, for me, it's having no ambition or no vision is bad, but having one and falling short of it is worse. And I think all of us are inspired by having a purpose that we can achieve. And the next 10 years, we're going to see an acceleration of innovation we have not seen in our lifetime. And not making sure we capitalize on that intersection to make a real difference for patients will be shame on all of us. So that worries me. And if you ask me what excites me with it, it has to be something, and I mentioned some of them, it has to be something that's simplistic and not add more complexity to the system. The system cannot afford that. It has to be a collaborative effort, small, mid, and large, to make that difference. It has to be also something that not just the small changes, but to have that ambition to really go in and make a big difference. Because if not, we're going to miss a huge opportunity. It doesn't come every other day. That's what excites me. That's what excites us at J&J. We've done some incredible progress so far with Carto, with Monarch, with Velis. But I just think we're at the beginning of something that's going to be really incredible going forward. And I hope us as an industry can hit that. So that's what keeps me up.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head as you talk to clinicians, whether that's in their office or an acute setting like a surgery center or the outpatient unit or even the hospital. I don't know how many clinicians at the end of the day are going to get caught up in this whole data AI discussion. They want outcomes for the patient, and whatever solution you're implementing, they want it to work. You talked a lot about workflow. So they're not going to get involved with that. They want it just to work and make lives easier and have outcomes. So last but not least, Gabrielle, what are you excited about? What keeps you up at night? What does the future look like?
Thank you. So as I said earlier, I think there's so much opportunity. There's no doubt that this is such an exciting time. I think, being in the med device industry, we know that, in healthcare industry in general, it's not an industry that changes super fast, but the changes that we're seeing nowadays, it's really impressive to see. So I see so many opportunities. We ourselves, we transform endoscopy once, and we're looking to do that again as being at the forefront of really bringing a digital ecosystem to really help in patient outcomes, workflow, and bring value to our customers. One of the things I think that keeps us up at night is that everything nowadays, as we start thinking about AI, and in our field specifically, we're at the cutting edge, at the forefront. So being able to have the regulation stay at our pace and to have the flexibility for regulators to pivot and learn, because we are going to be changing healthcare. And we need to do it with patient safety in mind first. But I think we're going to have to be flexible to try new ways. We're going to pivot, test and learn. And again, we need to do that with regulators hand in hand. And so I think being able to stay at pace with that is something that certainly keeps us up at night.
Fantastic. So to me, to recap that, it kind of sounds like fail fast, crawl, walk, and run. So with that, I want to thank you both for your insights and for being here today and sharing perspectives from your organizations, and look forward to a great rest of the conference. Thank you so much.
Thank you.